7 o'clock. I'd like to start the Simsbury Board of Education regular meeting of November 27th. Sorry, wow, I've got a long day. At this point in time, we'd be happy to take any public audience. If anyone has anything they would like to say or share, they can do so now.
I do.
Please state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Patty Gonzalez. I live at 971 Hot Meadow Street. My son Anthony's in 5th grade at Central School. He has an extremely high IQ, and he attends Taekwondo 3 times a week. That's where he gets his physical activity. But intellectually, I take him to Yale University. At age 8, he did 1 year at CCSU, took a class for a year, 2 semesters. Then we started going to Yale University Saturday Science. He spends time at the Littner Observatory with the professors. They talk to him. He holds really intellectual conversations. He did Wesleyan University, observe the moon night. We went there. We joined the Greater Hartford Astronomical Society. And a lot of it is adults. He's 11 years old now. I have a picture of him. He's a really cute kid. But he wanted me to come here tonight, and as his mother, to ask you if you would consider on the elementary school level starting a science/astronomy club. There are a lot of kids who love science. You know, he doesn't like sports. He does a lot of research. He says, Mom, you know, if kids had the chance to be in a science or astronomy club, you know, they can work at NASA, they would become school teachers. There's a lot of, they could become engineers. I mean, he gives me this whole thing, a list of reasons why science and math and astronomy would be a great club. So I hope that you'll consider it. I think it would be a great place. There are a lot of sports and robotics. I tried Lego League at the end of September, but they told me it was too late for him to join at the end of September. So, you know, maybe next year, find out what teachers could head something like that, because I can guarantee you there's lots of kids who would love science. And
Thank you very much. That's a great idea. We appreciate you coming and giving us that good idea.
It's just something to ponder.
We are very fortunate to have a lot of clubs, and they are always an asset to any education.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a place where he can connect with people.
Great.
With kids his age.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Moving on, Board and Administrative Communications. Katie.
Well, in the holiday spirit, there's been a lot of food drives. It's been a while since the last meeting, but back in Halloween, there was the Scare Hunger Away food drive.
There you go.
And most recently, there's the turkey trot, and then starting now and continuing through the Christmas season, there's with the police department stuff, the cruiser, and there's all kinds of canned food drives going on at all the school events and functions. Also, on Halloween, Squadron Line had their 2nd annual Storybook Pumpkin Stroll, in which pumpkins were decorated to look like storybook characters, and parents came in to read books to classes. The pictures are really cute. The Tooten Hills had their 2nd all-aboard family meeting, where teachers and small groups of students in mixed grades participate in activities to help develop a stronger sense of respect, personal responsibility, and care for each other. And the focus of that meeting was being grateful for the service of our veterans, and cards were made, and continuing that, all elementary schools had assemblies on Veterans Day. Terrafil just got a new Gaga pit for recess, and parent-teacher conferences are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week at the elementary schools. The middle school had their fall dance after a week of spirit days. And at the high school, we had our annual gridiron football game. There's a really good band that played beforehand. It was a good time.
And who won?
I don't remember.
Simsbury won. Simsbury won. I wouldn't have asked if I didn't know the answer. Thank you very much. Appreciate your help, all your dedication on that. That's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And a lot more to come. Tom?
Nothing this evening.
Jen?
No, thanks.
Yeah, I just briefly, I attended the Cape Caps convention. The theme this year was transforming schools, transforming lives, and it was very, very well attended this year. We started off with the Delegate Assembly, and as many of you know, the Delegate Assembly is really the the governing body of what we will be taking forward to the next General Assembly come January. So several of the resolutions that were passed were in finance, the school finance system, the incentives to promote efficiencies among districts, burden of proof, and 21st century skills. So these were some of the areas that we will be working on from the different resolutions that were passed that were submitted by all the districts, or many of the districts in Connecticut. Then we also had the actual conference, which was Friday and Saturday. We had 500 educational leaders that were there, and tremendous amount of insurgents and tremendous amount of excitement there from all the board members, many board members that attended. Some great topics, great workshops, great speakers. We had as a keynote speaker Mark Brackett from Yale, who's a scientist, and also Dr. Freeman Habrowski from University of Maryland on Saturday morning as a speaker. So it was a very, very well-attended conference. I think board members and educational leaders that came took away quite a bit, bringing back a lot of good information back to their districts. Also, the big honor and award was given to the Commissioner of Education, Diana, and because she is outgoing as Commissioner, and so it was really, really great to honor her in the way from the conference. So that was it, and we'll start moving in December. I wish it were September. In December, with all the upcoming news for the legislative front, whether legislatively in January, starting with Connecticut and then moving up to D.C.
Thank you very much.
So that was it. We missed you. We understand that you could not, you and...
We had snow issues. I had snow issues.
That did keep so, but...
We were in the north end, north of
yeah.
part of Connecticut. It was kind of messy up here.
We'll catch you next year, so...
Yes, sorry about that.
Good. So this is, as many of you know, this is my last meeting as a member of the Board of Ed. Just have a couple of comments I want to make. First of all, I want to say that it's been a pleasure to serve alongside all of you. I have always admired the amount of volunteer time that board members put in and the dedication and the contribution that you make to our community, and it's been a real pleasure for me to be part of that process for 17 years now. To the district leadership and the staff and the people in the leadership of the school buildings, the principals and all the faculty members and people I've had a lot of chance to meet with and talk with over the years. Thanks for all your patience with me and your willingness to talk to me about issues that came up and explain how things work and answer my questions and participate in those discussions. It's because of all of you that we have such a great school district, and to have been able to be here as a member of the Board of Ed and help maybe in some small way with that process has been great. So, real pleasure. So, I wish everybody well, and it's been a pleasure to work with everyone. Thank you.
But you got to stay for the meeting.
I have to. Can I leave after the acceptance of
No, no. And that hasn't happened yet.
No.
Just saying, just because you have a
Tara's
plan.
moving that to the back end of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you again.
Mike, at this point, let me say, we just can't even thank you enough for your dedication, the time you've put in,
Thank you.
and your compassion for the students and the teachers, and just making sure we do what's right for the right reasons. And, just for those people who don't know Mike, he has been a member of the board since 2001. He was secretary. He's been vice chairman. He has chaired the Personnel and Negotiations Committee through 5 rounds of negotiations, which is yeoman's work.
I try to forget that.
He was on the Revenue Committee, he was on the Social Outcomes Committee, Transportation Committee, Building and Grounds Subcommittee, Simsbury High School Ad Hoc Committee. He's chairman, well, he has been currently chairman of the Facilities Enrollment Task Force. He is Facilities Master Plan Selection Committee. He has been on the Board of Finance, Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, Long Range Planning Committee, Technology Advisory Council, Pension Committee, Retirement Plan Committee, Subcommittee, and these are just to name a few because...
Starts to sound like an obituary.
It just means that you will be impossible to
Well, it's been great.
choose to fill.
The best part about it is, and many of you know that, I've had 3 kids go through the school system from the start to the finish, and One's a junior officer in the Navy, and the other one has his master's in aerospace engineering and works for a defense contractor. And the other one works in private equity and is about to start his master's in business administration. So, maybe the best part of being involved here is that connection with my kids' education. So it's been great. It really has been. It's a long list, but...
You've done a lot of work, and on a personal note, I just, as superintendent, want to thank you, Mike. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Mike and I had breakfast, but transitioning in as superintendent 7 years ago, you were really instrumental in your mentorship to me and some of the things we've worked through in the district, and your unique experience in so many different areas, from a business background to a facilities background, has been so helpful. For all of us. I've learned a lot from you, and I greatly appreciate it, Mike.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
We're so sad. I can't even. And we thought we'd get you a little something.
Is this an invitation to the next meeting?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a fancy. I need to get a hint
Perfect.
There's something in it.
Don't lose what's in the...
But you like, my Canadian friend.
That's right. We call that a toque.
You're ready for a hockey rink.
Thank you very much.
And there's a gift card for dinner.
I got it, yeah. Thank you.
So I thought you could keep Simsbury everywhere you go and never forget us.
Thank you very much.
All right.
We will miss you. But we haven't approved it yet. All right, moving on.
Susan?
Susan?
No, thank you.
Susan?
Two updates. The first is that we had a really amazing, well-received, and I think a very productive PD session on November 6th, which was our full-day PD. It started off the night before, and we had a nationally known speaker on anxiety and depression. I know some board members were there, so thank you for attending. Her name was Lynn Lyons, and she did an amazing program to literally hundreds of parents, mental health professionals, and other community members in Simsbury the night before. So that was very well received. And then she was our keynote speaker the next day for our full faculty. After Lynn's keynote, we actually had breakout sessions where teachers can make some choice about the sessions they wanted to attend regarding different students and behaviors and disabilities and manifestations of those in the classroom, and just building that toolbox of strategies that teachers could use. And again, preschool up through our students with disabilities at age 21. So again, very, very well received, and I think certainly a productive and helpful day for our faculty and staff. The second update I wanted to provide you is 2 Saturdays ago, our high school flag football unified team won the silver medal in New England. They played up in Franklin, Massachusetts under the direction of Coach Matt Spector and just did a phenomenal job. So I have video if anyone wants to see the winning touchdown. It was pretty cool, and want to thank Matt for his great work and certainly our students on that team.
Wonderful. Neil?
I'm going to pass tonight.
All right. Just to let you know, the first 2 weeks in December will be our 5th annual Hour of Code. It's where our high school computer science students will be assisting other classes within the high school, the middle school, and at our elementary school. Elementary schools will be doing it during the week of December 10th through the 14th. If any of you are interested in seeing what's going on, let me know, and I can hook you up to one of the schools that's happening on one of the days of that week. So it's really quite exciting and giving the kids an opportunity to engage in a lesson around what the kids at the high school what they've been learning has just been outstanding. So 5 years, hard to know. Yeah. Jacqueline Petrella has really been the co-leader of this with Melissa Farrington for a long time, and so really has helped us pull it together again this year. So thank you.
Great. Burke?
Just one item to confirm with the board and the public that we have selected the firm for the school facilities master plan and reconfiguration study. We were really fortunate, had a great response, very qualified firms. Tecton Architects of Hartford is who was ultimately chosen. Matt and I had a chance to do kind of a final round, but we were really thankful for the selection committee that was made up of some town and Board of Ed staff. Neil was part of that, and of course volunteer efforts from Derek Peterson of Board of Finance, and as was referenced earlier by Tara, Mike in one of his final acts of service, really thankful that he lent his expertise to that process. So we're looking forward to a kickoff meeting happening to get scheduled within the next couple of weeks, and that project will be roughly 1 year from today will be finished, and their board will be getting an interim update in a couple more months. So.
Great, thank you.
Just a reminder that on Monday at 6 p.m. In the library program room is the 3-board meeting, where we will have an opportunity to have pre-budget discussions, and it is a meeting that's geared towards providing the boards, both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, some guidance as we start to put our budget proposals together internally here. We start next week with a series of meetings with our building and program leaders relative to their building-specific and program-specific budgets. Burke and I did have a chance to attend the last Board of Finance meeting, where they had some preliminary conversations and looked at some mill rate worksheet scenarios and potential town revenue scenarios, and had some initial conversations about guidance to the two boards. We're putting together, I had a chance to meet with Maria downstairs, some more background information that I will provide to the board prior to sending to the Board of Finance, but on some enrollment information, fixed cost information, some various things to help facilitate the conversation in the meeting on Monday. But always an important meeting as we start our process that I want to remind everybody.
Thank you.
All right, and Lydia let me know we have a guest here today. We have Heather McBride is working on her 092 administrative program, so part of that grind is putting in some hours at board meetings, right? So, welcome. It's nice to see you. Okay.
Thank you very much. We have the minutes of our October 23rd meeting. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, corrections?
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Going on to personnel.
A couple of items for your action tonight. The first is that we have received notice of a retirement from our wonderful science teacher at Henry James Memorial School in Cindy Carey. Cindy joined the teaching forces mid-career after working in the science industry and made the leap over to teaching. So currently 18 years of service, and will be retiring at the end of this school year. So ask that you make that motion to accept Cindy's notice of retirement.
Ready?
Move to approve Cindy's retirement.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your service.
She's still with us for another 7 months, so
She's still-
we get Cindy for a little while longer.
And she is passionate about her job and
Yes,
what she
she
does,
is.
so
Yes, she
we're
is.
lucky to have her.
So we also have 2 resignations tonight, which is unusual at this time of year, but we had both Kristen Pavich, who is currently a 6th grade teacher at Latimer Lane. She's had different roles, taught at Terrafil School. She's been a math coach for us at a different point in her career, and has, similar to the next person that I'll talk about, just found some personal challenges that are not going to be short-term challenges, and the balance of out-of-school life with the demands of teaching are just difficult for her right now. So she has decided to resign her position. Her last day was our day before Thanksgiving. I am pleased to report we were able to go out into the pool and find a very qualified person who will be starting on January 2nd. You'll see that in the next personnel exhibit that we bring. A teacher currently teaching in Suffield. And for the month of December, the wonderful Mary Ann Lindquist has returned to the classroom at Latimer Lane to take over that 6th grade classroom. So we'll do the 2 motions together. The other teacher is a French teacher at Simsbury High School, Lena Tawe, also some personal challenges that are making it difficult for her to continue in her teaching role. She is a part-time French teacher. We are handling that one by a clause in the contract where finding a French teacher at this point in the year would be a challenge. Some of the other teachers are going to pick up one extra class for the remainder of the year and kind of take on some extra duty and keep our French department moving forward. So her last day will be Friday with us on November 30th. So see the motion there, ask that one of you make that for tonight's exhibit.
I'll move that the Board of Education accept the resignation of Kristen Pavich, effective November 21st, 2018, and Lena Taway, effective November 30th, 2018.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item. Mike Goman has submitted his resignation from the Board of Education to the town. I just don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. The town, October 1st, and with an effective date of November 30th. It is our duty to the states that upon receipt of the board member's written resignation, the board will consider the resignation request at the next regularly scheduled meeting. The board will then accept the resignation by formal action. So, with heavy heart, I'm looking for a motion.
I will move, with also a heavy heart, to accept the resignation of Mike Goman from the Board of Education.
Second?
No.
We don't second.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
And I'll abstain.
Surprised you're not jumping up and down.
Janet wants to hear that.
Again, thank you so much. We just can't
Thank you.
thank you enough for all you've done.
I just want to say, Mike, when I joined the board, you're one of the first people who reached out to me, and your guidance, I think, for all of us over time has been so invaluable. So I truly appreciate you sitting here and all the help you've given all of us as we all filled these seats.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for saying that.
It is very, very true. Anyone else?
Well, Mike, I think I might be one of those that coerced you into joining the board.
I think you were.
And you can blame me for that after. But I think back then, 17 years ago, when we were looking for replacement, I'm not even sure who you're replacing, but when your name came forward, and we developed a friendship, and I think that from the beginning, from the get-go, you were most certainly the right choice for this board at that time, and during the duration of the 17 years that you have served on this board, the students and families and faculty and staff of Simsbury. So, again, with heavy heart and sadness to see you leave, but on to other things. But your wisdom will always be sitting here with us around the board. And
Thank you very much. Call the vote before this gets.
I did call the vote.
yeah, we're good.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed? All right. Okay, moving on to our informational reports. Elementary academic report.
Okay, I'd like to invite Beth Hennessy and Maggie Seidel to the table. This is our third presentation of reports following the high school and the middle school reports. We also have, obviously, in the audience, our other elementary folks. We have Betsy Gonzalez, Director of Elementary Curriculum. We have Mike Lazzetti, Latimer Lane. We have Steve Madzik, Principal at Terriffill, Meg Evans, Nancy Forsberg, and Jacqueline Petrella, that are all here tonight to support this report. So as we go forward tonight, what you're going to hear about are the academic indicators of success for the 2017-2018 school year. Well, they'll be talking to us about the culture and climate issues that are going on and successes at the elementary level, areas of focus that they're working on for the 18-19 school year, and a quick budget review. So I'm going to pass it over to Beth Hennessy to begin.
Good evening. We start each summer by reviewing the district assessment measures that we're going to share with you tonight. All the district assessment measures are the same at all the schools. So we're really looking at what our student successes are, and we look to determine students in need of additional enrichment or intervention. We also look at the achievement to look at cohort growth and see where students are growing across the grades. And we also use it to reflect on our curriculum, to make sure our curriculum are meeting the needs of our students. Within our district strategic plans, we have two areas of focus under student achievement. And the first indicator here that we'd like to share is our district reading measure. As you can see, grade 3, we had 86% of our third graders who met or exceeded the grade level benchmark for the DRA2. The DRA2 is a measure of reading accuracy, comprehension, fluency, and rate of reading, so it's a very comprehensive assessment that helps us to diagnose and also to inform instructional decisions. 72% of the students in grade 3 exceeded or met the expectation with the DRP, and that's the degrees of reading power. That assessment measures a student's overall ability to comprehend nonfiction passages, and it's in a closed passage format, and it's under a timed setting. As you can see underneath the heavy black line in grade 6, our reading measure, 87% of the students met or exceeded the end-of-year DRP benchmark. And we noted that cohort's performance in grade 3 underneath in parentheses, so that you can see as third graders, that particular cohort had 75.4% who met or exceeded, and by the end of 6th grade, we had 87%. So it's a similar trend and pattern as we watch the cohorts as they perform in 3rd grade, and then as they exit in 6th grade.
This next slide shows our student achievement data in the area of writing. So as you can see, students in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, we provided you with the percentage of students meeting the end of year benchmark, but we've also provided you the previous year data from 2017. So you can see there's really strong cohort growth across the grades.
The next two slides.
But that's the same, so the 79, 4th grade, 79%, that was 71.6 as 3rd graders?
Correct. Yep.
Just want to make sure I've got that right. Thanks.
The next two slides will take a look at our students' performance in grade 3 through 6 on the Smarter Balance Assessment. And this first slide takes a look at the English language arts. The slide shows the SBAC performance over the past 2 years, and you can see that the diagonal arrow shows the cohort performance from the year before. So as you can see in 2017, we had 79% of the 3rd graders meeting a level 3 or 4, and then as 4th graders, 82%. So as we look across that cohort data, we see nice trends and nice growth. And we've really benefited from, many years. I think we're at 16 years of being part of the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. We're in our 2nd year of having the new units of study really under our belt. So we've seen lots of great progress in this area. And some of our action steps moving forward is that our language arts consultants will continue to work in grades 2 and 3 to identify and target instructional practices. 3rd grade, we want to make sure that we are continuing to see that growth. Ongoing data team meetings continue. We actually just finished our first round as we monitor progress and make action steps in the different tiers of intervention. And then we continue to have ongoing professional development both at the building level, where we get to make some internal decisions based on how students are performing. And then we also have our designated days with the Teachers College program through our staff developers.
This slide represents 2 years' worth of data based on our math scores. Remembering that last year was our first year at the implementation of our Math in Focus program. So you can see we've got some work to do. We do have some growth. We're really impressed with our 6th grade results, and that 74% last year was 6th in DIRG B. So we definitely have some strengths within our grade levels. We have a lot of action steps that we are already in process with. We're really grateful for having a math coach in every building. The math coaches are making a daily impact on helping teachers implement the new program and also supporting student learning as well. We've already done an analysis of our SBAC results at the end in the summer, during the summertime, so we know areas to focus on throughout the school year. Under Betsy Gonzalez's direction, she worked this summer with the math coaches, doing some revision to the pacing in scope and sequence at each grade level. So that's another action step that's supporting us getting through the curriculum at a different pace this year. And really, the math coaches are just providing daily professional development, whether it's in professional learning community. BBPD stands for our building-based professional development. There are teachers where the math coach can pull groups of teachers together, like let's bring all the third grade teachers together and provide that kind of professional development at the building level. And they're also planning district-wide professional development. We had some in November, and I know Betsy is working with the math coaches now for the next district-wide sessions that come up, I think, December 12th. Just examples of some of the work we're doing. With our assessments, we're really doing some item analysis, using our math coaches, working with teachers and PLCs to do some item analysis and understanding where some of the learning is breaking down for students. The pedagogy of the program is also the delivery of the model that Math in Focus uses is still a focus for us, as well as helping teachers understand the types of questioning that they need to do to develop a deeper understanding from the children. And the anchor tests are really the problem-solving piece of the program that we're working with teachers to understand how to write some anchor tasks and develop those in the classroom. Another really supportive tool under Betsy's direction this year was they created these 2D maps. It's really like a roadmap per chapter for each unit of study. So each chapter has specific standards that are listed out, the knowledge and skills that are right there for the teachers to see, and then the assessments included. So it's been a really useful tool that teachers are using daily. As Maggie mentioned in ELA, we continue to have math data team meetings as well. So having the math coaches in the building this year is such a key factor to have ongoing data team meetings with teachers throughout the school year. That's just like a seamless transition from what we've always done in ELA into the math. This slide shows you the roll-up of grades 3 through 6 for our DIRG. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see our results for our ELA, our English Language Arts. We're extremely proud of the ongoing and consistent performance we've had in ELA over the years. As you can see on the right-hand side, we have some work to do in math, and we are really confident that the action steps that we have in place will see the growth this year. We've done a little research on the top 4 schools, and 3 of the top 4 schools have been using Math in Focus for the past 3 to 5 years. So we expect our performance to continue to grow this year.
The next slide.
Excuse me, just a quick question about that math score, that 68.5 in 2018. How does that compare with the previous year, if you know?
In the DIRG?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have last year.
Close, I don't have it with me.
Pretty flat.
It's pretty flat.
Flat.
Yeah.
Pretty flat in the implementation.
And the year before that, has it been?
It's varied, you know, no more probably than 3 positions up in the last 3 to 5 years in a very close window, which is the main reason why, as you know, we shift the programs.
Sure. And the addition of math coaches.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
This next slide, one of our continued areas of focus has been around the achievement gap. And what this slide looks at is this is specific to performance on English Language Arts on the Smarter Balance Assessment. And what these graphs show are the difference between the average vertical scale score between high need students and non-high needs. And high need students are defined as students with special education needs, those that receive free and reduced lunch, and students identified as English learners. So what we're looking at is trying to ensure and see what the difference is between those two different sets of students and looking at how we're performing as compared to the state. So as you can see on the grade 3 graph, we are in line with the state average of there being about 88 points between the performance of our high need students and our non-high need students. And the score on the left, as you can see, is the highest range, and the score on the right is the lowest range. As you look over the grade 6 slide, we're below the state average at 85 points between those two groups, and we're proud of this, and we're going to continue to work on continuing to close that achievement gap. Similarly, this slide also looks at that achievement gap with the SBAC, but in the area of math. So again, it shows the difference in average vertical scale score between those high need students and our non-high need students. For grade 3, we were above the state average at 96 points between those two groups.
There is no bar on the left because, unfortunately, we have the highest difference, and this will be a significant priority for us this year. For grade 6, we are below the state average at 100 points difference. And again, the action steps that Beth had just outlined, we do feel as though are in line with what we need to be doing to continue to keep our eye on closing the achievement gap as well. This slide right here is an example of an action plan from a 6th grade teacher. And this 6th grade teacher worked with a building math coach to analyze the data for the 6th grade students and wrote specific SMART goals to be monitored throughout the year. This particular plan is in line, it's our teacher evaluation plan, so this would be one area, one SLO that we call student learning outcomes, and they used a STAR assessment to develop 3 specific SMART goals that are broken down to target specific student performance. And we just wanted to share with you an example, not only from a big perspective and the global of what we're doing in terms of action steps, but down to what does it look like to a specific teacher's plan. And underneath that, most importantly, you can see it down to all students are involved in this particular SLO, where we're making sure that we're watching the performance of all students under each of the teachers.
This slide reflects some of the themes that came out of a survey that we delivered to students at the end of 3rd grade and the end of 5th grade. And you can see the area of strengths across all the schools. Students are really feeling very supported about how they're being recognized through their character education programs in each school. Each school has developed specialized programs that support what the data is telling us to do. So there's really some special programs that are unique to each school that we're carrying on with. And we continue to support teachers as they learn about responsive classroom practices, which are really about good teaching and learning practices that support students in the classroom. Some of the areas of focus for us this year continue to be about making sure students feel a sense of belonging, helping students respect differences in others, and the other piece of helping students really maintain that sense of safety in our school climate. So I've touched on a few of these already this year. So year 2 of Math in Focus is first and foremost in our minds about really making sure that we increase student achievement in that area. Again, the building-based math coaches are just an incredible resource for all of us in the building. We also have teachers this year implementing new science units that are reflective of the next generation science standards, so that work is going on in schools. Our data review cycles are continuing to really improve our practices and push our student growth as we use those cycles to reflect on the student data and switch up our instructional practices. As Sue mentioned earlier, we all have a focus on the social and emotional growth of students, and teachers just were thrilled with the presenter and then the choice workshops offered by Sue's faculty as well. Building safety continues to be an area of focus that we work with Neil on and Burke and Matt as we're continuing to look at our safety procedures and change some of the protocols that we've used as well. This last week was the culmination of the safety audit that was done by the outside consultant. So he finished at 3 of the elementary schools he didn't get to last year. So we're now awaiting his report so we can meet with Neil and Burke and Matt to figure out what our next steps are.
He loved Simsbury so much that he stayed through the snowy weekend and did Maggie's school on Monday instead of the Friday before. So.
This last slide is a budget preview. As we start to think about the year to come, we are looking to have additional FTE in the area of world language. Whereas last year we were thinking about the math coach and the social worker. There would be more information about this coming in the December Board of Ed meeting. And then we're also going to be continuing to focus on the building maintenance and updates. The building maintenance and updates a lot of that will be directed through the facilities planning and maintenance study, but that will continue to be a focus. And finally, as Beth said, the building safety upgrades. We're continuing to think about how we do school and how we ensure that kids feel safe and that we have all aspects of our day included as we think about safety. It was really beneficial to have some outside eyes that are asking, how are you doing this or why are you doing this? So that will continue to be a priority as we prepare the upcoming budget for the next school year. And this actually concludes our report for the 2017-18 update from the elementary schools.
Maggie, where was that picture taken?
That one was taken at Central, right? That's a STEM, that's the STEM. Yeah, it's from a...
It was
summer, yeah.
With Kurt Dugan and...
Right.
Just a couple of questions, please.
Yeah, we'll get there.
The sample teacher goals for mathematics, it's really fantastic to see something that specific in terms of objectives for the teachers. And one question I would have, did we have a system in place last year similar to this procedure for the establishment of objectives, or is this new?
We had it in place last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give us some perspective on the extent to which the goals were met last year? Is a question, and if you don't not prepared to answer that, I would just raise it as a kind of an interesting question.
Sure.
So is your question, Tom, were there specific math goals last year in teacher plan?
The question was, were there specific math goals, and if there were they achieved or not?
Yeah.
So,
There were some. There were some.
but not across the board.
Last year was much more about the implementation
I see.
and the pacing than it was about specific achievement targets.
This is a more thorough
It is.
Yes,
goal
it is.
setting, and I think it would be very interesting as the years go by then to get
Cycle
some sense of, okay,
Yep.
we set the goals, we meet them. Now, the other question I wanted to raise was about this this Math 2018 Dirk B comparison. And I don't recall ever seeing a Dirk comparison that looks like that. Maybe we have had it, but I don't remember. Been on the board a couple of years now, almost three, but I've never seen anything like that. And I'm just wondering, do we have for the math coaches the same kind of SLO goals? Are we being as specific in terms of goals for the math coaches as we are for the teachers?
Yes.
Yes.
And they're often tied in with the teachers,
Right.
which is really nice to have those embedded as well.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the things as part of our professional growth plan too is that we have a category 1, which is about the instructional practices, and that's also where we're really tying in the work of our math coach to help with the instructional practices as they strengthen that, and then also at the achievement part of the plans as well. So teachers are feeling well supported as they make this shift in instructional practice. It's a shift. So I do think that that's one of the pieces that we try and make sure that these plans are aligned.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a hunger, at least I know I will have a hunger, next year and the year after that, to get a sense for whether these math coaches, we worked pretty hard to get those math coaches in school, are they making a difference? And so if we could just keep that in mind going forward. And then the last question is about this column, this Math 2018 in Dirk B, which I've never seen anything like it before. Do we have any idea, why is it that these schools, Guilford, Trumbull, Glastonbury, do we have any idea as to why are their scores so much higher than ours? What the heck is going on?
I mean, there's a lot of different variables, Tom. I think one of the things we really discovered over time with our other math program is as we tried to adjust to the new alignment of the standards and to the alignment of the SBAC test, we were doing a lot of shifting of units, shifting of pacing across grade levels. It wasn't the most coherent of systems. These other districts have had a program in place, much like we have on the language arts side with professional development that's been much more consistent over time. The early conversations we've had with just pacing alone, meaning, okay, second grade teacher, where are you in the content that you've moved through this year as opposed to last year where kids had gaps and we moved some things, is significantly different. So again, it's not a question of our kids' intellect, because look at the reading scores, they're the same. They're the same children, right? It's an alignment and it's a pacing issue and it's getting our teachers comfortable with delivery. So I think we all feel pretty good that we have the the pieces in place. So where you say that you're real interested in seeing the results, I can assure you that our team has gotten that message.
You are not alone.
Okay, thank you very
But
much.
as Beth had mentioned also, and Maggie, that we know Glastonbury, Farmington, and Monroe that are at the top of that list, within the top 5, have had Math and Focus in place for a number of years, 3 to 5 years, and they've made growth over time. So we're very confident
that's
that we'll
interesting.
continue to make growth as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
That when we were researching, Farmington noted that, and other schools too, that they had a dip the first year of implementation in their scores, and then they proceeded to see a growth over time. So it was an interesting, as we kind of explored the different programs.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up on one of Tom's points. I guess if you were to look at this, I mean, we've had math coaches in place for a while now, and we've added. I mean, when you look at this, and I'm looking at the same 17 to 18, I mean, the scores are going down. So how do you reconcile the extra math coaches and the work that we're putting in?
Which slide are we looking
slide
at?
before
They're not
the
numbers, so I can't really.
This one.
That slide before it,
Can't tell what.
that 3rd to 4th grade is a huge drop,
Yeah.
76 to 64.
It's this one.
Trying to get
Right.
there. Oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
Page 7.
There you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand the time that we need and the investment, but how do you look at the numbers and the scores and you see them go down when we're putting more investment in it?
Right.
So I would look at that, and you have, as Jen said, a significant dip in 4th grade. I would call the 4th to 5th pretty flat. I mean, I know it's down, and 6th grade is up from a cohort standpoint. So, research will tell you that any of these programs, there's going to be a natural implementation dip because of the delivery of it the first time, and I think that's where we are. So I think there's no magic wand to this. I think it's time, effort, and I think we're in the right direction, and I think we will absolutely see results,
And 4 or 5 years ago when we started, we had one math coach, and then we added another, and then what we got to last year was a full implementation of the program. They weren't building-based, so I think what you're hearing from the principals already is the difference that it makes to have a math coach in the building working with teachers. So I think that, and I think as Tom said, how can we continue to measure that? Well, I think we'll be able to do that over time, to see the impact that our math coaches make in their buildings.
There were definitely grade levels, too, where the Math and Focus shift was felt more than others, where we had to make up some ground because Math and Focus had different skills at different times. I would say 3rd grade and 5th grade were 2 of those hot areas where there was a greater volume of information that they had to get in order to play the catch-up because of not having Math and Focus from kindergarten all the way up. So 3rd and 5th grade had more we had to kind of fill in, if you will, that I know that pacing-wise was really a challenge for them before the assessment actually came to be. And we said, listen, it's more important for the kids to get the teach for the duration of the year because of where the test falls. So we just said, stay steady with the pacing of what you've got because we've had to make some decisions in an implementation year that we are not necessarily feeling this year because we were able to write a lot of those. We had a couple areas that were still, but not like what we had last year. Specific, in my memory, to grades 3 and 5 were
So you're saying that if the test had happened at the end of the year, these numbers would not have, potentially would not have been the same?
Yeah, because we did have to do some different things that we had from the previous program were aligned and paced differently than the way Math and Focus had. Even the opening of multiplication and when we were teaching kids different things and how we were teaching it is definitely a shift.
Some of us recall that on the previous math that was implemented. So, can speak from experience that actually happens. The dip happens.
We'll move on.
And then they get better. Anyone else have any other questions? I liked these graphs here that were helpful to me. These in the previous year with the data where you could see. I really enjoyed that. That was helpful to me to see it in that frame.
Context. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I think we're.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your efforts and take care of our people.
Yes, we will.
Of our little people. Our next agenda item is the SHS schedule update.
All right, I'd like to invite Andy O'Brien, principal of Simsbury High School, once everybody else files out, up to the table here.
years.
So Andy O'Brien is here tonight, along with Ken Para, assistant principal, and Dan Deanna, a English teacher at Simsbury High School, has been the chairperson of our scheduling committee for the past 18 months, 2 years. So they're both here tonight to support Andy. So I'm going to kick it off to you. And what I want to just make sure is that throughout the presentation, Andy may be referring to the exhibit, the report that was also included. So if you have that on your Chromebook, that you can take a look at it. He may be referencing that along the way. Do you want this?
Oh, please. So a significant amount of work went into this, and I really appreciate having Ken Para here because Ken does so much with building schedule, but also Dan Diana, the faculty's commitment to this investigation and the professionalism and dedication that they brought to this process was really just inspiring and amazing. So I'm just very happy to be able to share this information with you tonight. High schools are often searching for the perfect schedule. There is no one perfect schedule, otherwise everybody would have the same one. It really comes down to a choice of a relatively small set of different schedules that are consistent with your school's beliefs, your core values, and your community. So we believe we are at, right now, a moment where we are ready for a change, and I'd like to just bring you up to speed on the work that our leadership team has been working on, our leadership committee. So last year...
Andy, just from the get-go, just a question, and it's going to be great to hear about this, but that statement, we're ready for a change, is the system somehow broken and it needs to be fixed?
No, I wouldn't say that the system is broken and needs to be fixed, but one of the things that and I heard it in this last presentation, we're constantly looking for continuous improvement in our district, and that's one of the things that makes us so great. So we are at this point, not because of some deficit necessarily in achievement, but we are seeing through working with this schedule, and I don't want to get too far ahead of it now, that there are opportunities for us to become even better.
Okay, so
and
this is not to fix the
we're
problem. This is just to get better.
This is really, it's continuous improvement. It's fine-tuning a well-oiled machine.
Okay.
It's really what it is. So last year, the leadership committee, and sometimes we say leadership committee and people get confused because we have different committees with leaders on them. This is our committee that really is made up of Board of Education members, administrators, parents, students, community members, and their task is to grapple with a significant issue to improve our school each year. In the past, we've looked at student stress, we've looked at celebrating academic achievement versus athletic achievement and others, and last year we were looking at the potential benefits and questions associated with a move to a later school start time. So that's something we were working on, and as we were working on that, we had a faculty committee that was taking a look at our daily schedule. So these two paths were happening at the same time. One of the things we've realized is right now our district, like many other districts, are saying, okay, there are some potential merits to a later school start time, but we still have to think that through. We still have to consider that, maybe gather more information. But the work that we've done on our daily schedule is something that we believe, as I said before, we're ready for, and I'll lay the groundwork for that. But it's also something that's consistent with this move. If at some point in the future we decided to go with a slightly later opening, this particular schedule we're looking at is still consistent with that. This isn't something we'd have to come back to at another time and say, well, now, what does that mean? So why consider changing our daily schedule? And here's just some of the highlights here. We are 10 years right now with this current hybrid model. And the hybrid model that we have is we have kind of the best of both worlds in that we have 8 periods a day, 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week we have this block model where you've got a deep dive into 4 periods at a time. One of the things we found over that 10-year period is that those 8-period days, they're too short. They really are. They're short periods and a lot of transitions. And during our block classes, those can actually be too long. It can be too long. In some instances, we have classes where students are taking breaks during those long blocks, and it can be difficult to be there in that place for that long period of time. Impacts differ between students and teachers, but enough concern existed to warrant a closer look. Also, when we did student stress and we focused on that, there were a number of stressors that led to and pointed to the structure of our current schedule. So when we look at our current schedule, and I'll talk about that, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses? So it's the hybrid block again. We're 3 days a week, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. We've got all 8 periods meeting, and then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 4 and 4. We have our odd block day and our even block day. And there are some strengths with that. So the strengths speak to the nature of this. You have frequent contact, so you have the benefit of those 3 days a week, teachers seeing all of their students. You have the benefit of getting a deep dive for 1 period, every class 1 time a week. So you get an 83-minute period where you can really concentrate on some in-depth learning experiences and go to it and do that. If I'm a student, 2 days a week, I'm only responsible technically or on the hook for homework for half of my classes, be that on Wednesday or be that on Thursday. So those are some of the main benefits when we look at that schedule. The weaknesses now are really going to be the other side of that coin. So if we look at those 3 days a week when all 8 periods meet, that's a very frenetic day. That's a lot of transition within the building, a lot of movement. And those 42-minute periods really come down to probably on just slightly over 30 minutes of instructional time when you look at the time it takes to come in, sit down and get started, get initiated, then do my work, and then close out and wrap up and prepare to move to the next class. Also, those 3 days a week, I'm potentially on the hook for homework for all of those classes those 3 days a week. I could have homework due in all of those classes 3 times a week. When we look at the block classes, okay, those can be long. One of the things that we find with those block classes is if I miss a block day, that's problematic. It's problematic for a number of reasons. One of them is that's like missing 2 classes. That's a lot of information. Also, if I'm a teacher and I've prepared a really great learning experience for that big block of time and we get snowed out that day or something happens, now we've got to think, well, maybe we can do that thing next week when we have another big block. And we might get to it or we might not get to it if we have to keep moving. We talked about the time that people are spending in there as well. When it comes to really, it's also the unpredictable nature of that. Many questions that people have on a snow day is when they come back, what day is it? Okay, is it a block day? Is it an 8-period day? If it's an 8-period day, is it a Monday, Tuesday, or Friday schedule? So those are some of the concerns that we have. So when we did this work, the faculty committee approached me and said, we are very much interested in doing this work. In the timeline, you could see the history of their interest in doing that. It was prior to NEASC, and then we said, let's get through NEASC, and then after NEASC, they were ready to do this. So we said, let's look closely at other schools. Let's look at other successful schools. Let's look at schools in Durg A and Durg B. These are the schools where we compare our performance to. Let's look at other schools that have performed well on the Next Generation Accountability Measure. That's the state's new yardstick for comparing high schools and against one another that's pretty inclusive, comprehensive. It includes attendance and the achievement gap, as well as standardized measures and college and career readiness, et cetera. And then also CAP science scores, because we are a powerhouse here in science. We have led the state 2 years in a row, and those are things that we want to continue to do. The other parameters that when I spoke to Dan and members of the committee, I said that as you look at this, please make sure and know that any schedule that we would consider adopting has to be consistent with shared staff at Henry James. Henry James just went and adopted our schedule in a way to be more aligned with the work that we do, but also to allow their students to have those extended learning opportunities, which is a great thing. We are at a point where we're realizing that there can still be extended opportunities for learning in another schedule, and however, we know that we are most likely going to be sharing staff with Henry James now and probably in the foreseeable future for some time. So you should know confidently that this model that we are bringing forward to you will work with our current system now, should Henry James stay with the 8-period hybrid block that we have. That's not going to present a conflict.
And both Scott Baker and Anjanette Belmonte have been on the leadership team this year, so that they've been part of these conversations to learn more about it.
So this sort of walks you through some of the work that these dedicated staff members undertook over this period of time. They conducted interviews to speak personally to teachers and administrators and counselors at our Durg A and B schools. They pored over data from our top 15 next generation accountability schools. They looked at CAPT scores, and they also wanted to see in those schools that are doing well in CAPT, as we are, do they have an additional science lab or additional period for science as we do, or do they not? One of the things that happened is when we went from a straight 7 schedule to an 8-period hybrid, what many people do is we had in our 7-period schedule an additional period for science to allow for a lab, a deep opportunity. When many schools move to a hybrid block, they usually do away with that, but we maintained that. We held on to that. We wanted to know with this new schedule, there's opportunities to actually reduce that stressor for our students, and is that still synonymous with excellence on CAPT? And we were able to see that that is possible, and we'll talk a little bit more about it.
And so in your report, you can see the charts that were where the results were.
Yeah. Thank you. So this is what we found. We found that the majority of these schools, they have one of these 4 options. They either have the hybrid schedule that we currently have. They have a straight 8 schedule, which was similar to the schedule we had left, which was all 8 or all 7 periods meeting every day. Or they have this drop 2 schedule, or they have the AB block. And what we found was when we looked at all those data points, and there is one particular slide in your packet that brings them all together, and we looked at their next generation accountability schools. We looked at excellence on CAPT. We looked at do you have a degree of rotation, et cetera. And this is really where the lion's share of our high-performing schools were, and it's something that resonated with our staff members as well. Having consistency, 58-minute periods every day in every class. So there's not the uncertainty of, is it a short class or is it a long class? Every class, every day, 58 minutes. The number of meetings is slightly fewer, but when we look at the total hours and the overall contact hours, we're increasing our instructional time. This is what this schedule would look like. We populated it with classes for a freshman coming in. So this is this drop 2 schedule. So there are 8 classes, 6 classes meet every day, and then 2 drop out. And there's a degree of rotation. So you could see this English class on day A, it has, the student would have English period 1. On day 2, it would be period 2, and on day 3 or C, it would be period 3. That class would not meet on D day, but then when we resume this on Friday in this instance, they would have English again first period. So you could see how this plays out. There's a lot of benefits to this. So in addition to the predictability, which I said before, of knowing you've got 58 minutes every day, so if I am planning, and we believe 58 minutes is enough of an opportunity to get into some deep learning experiences, I don't have to wait for 1 day a week to do that. If I'm snowed out today, the next day I meet, I know I'm going to have that same period of time, and I can do that. But you can see that there's other opportunities to meet with your students. Right now, we have some situations where you've got a class first thing in the morning, it's first thing in the morning, and it's always first thing in the morning. Or if it's at the end of the day, it's always at the end of the day. That can be problematic for students if they're tired at certain times or they're hit a low point in their day. Sometimes it affects students when they're selecting their transcript, when they're registering for classes. We had a situation where students that wanted to take AP Environmental Science found out it was period 8, and there were many students that said, you know, I'd rather not take that class period 8 because that impacts possibly my early dismissal at the end of the day. What we'd see here for our upperclassmen in particular, there would be opportunities for late arrival and early dismissal for them at the beginning and end of the day, depending on where some of their classes might fall. So period C here, actually, if this was a junior or senior, that student could actually come in during period 2 for world language if they would like to forego their study at that time. So I'll wrap up our conversation and then we'll get to some questions because no doubt you have them. The Leadership Committee, what is our task? So our task right now is to continue the work that the faculty left us with their recommendation. And we have been meeting. We have already discussed the additional science period We believe through our work, looking at the performance of other schools and our conversations with Department Supervisor Heather Golden, that through the reduction of that additional science period that we have, it's going to do some tremendous things for our students. One of the things that it's going to do is reduce stress for our students. I told you before that our survey around stress came back to many things with our schedule. One of them is the propensity for homework on those 8-period days. On our block days, sometimes that's when there's a lot of heavy-duty assessments and other work that mounts up at that time. But there's also stress associated with science classes that have that additional class requirement that then eats into another period on a student's schedule, which makes it very difficult for students if they need to change a level in a class or they would like to pursue a different elective. It really kind of locks them in, or if they do make a change, it can disrupt many of their other classes in their schedule. So we talked about that. We're confident that by reducing that, it will not negatively impact our science performance, and it will actually relieve a tremendous amount of stress for our students. The period rotation, there's definite benefits to that. That's something we're going to discuss Thursday night of this week. And then advisory period. If we looked back at that previous model that I showed you, it did not have SHS Connect in there because we are going to talk about how to do that. Right now, we currently have SHS Connect twice a week for 20 minutes, which often we're feeling that might be too frequent and for not enough time to really have some quality connections or get some good work done. So we're looking to have that meet less frequently, but maybe for a longer period of time, and that's something we would discuss. And then ultimately, we'd like to be able to wrap this up and share our recommendations with stakeholders, because all of our work that we are doing, we're always planning out a year ahead. We're confident that this would be a great move for us, but we have to be able to reach a decision soon, by January, in order to set the wheels in motion to be able to make this happen for our students and our staff members. Ultimately, we believe this is going to do three things for us in our school. It's going to maximize instructional time so that we have more quality contact hours consistently with our students. It's going to reduce stress for our students and for our staff members, and it's going to provide more access to the entire program of studies for our students by making it easier for them to make changes as necessary and add some things to their schedule that really are going to be consistent with their passion and help them to grow over time with us.
I'm sure people have questions. Thank you very much for
Yeah,
the
my
detailed
pleasure.
report. Any questions? Have you, okay. Katie, tell us, what's your question?
On this page, it says that, so it marks certain schools as NL.
Oh, that's no lab, that's in the packet.
Yeah, but it says for level 2 students, would you consider keeping the lab period for AP Science? Because I've taken several AP Science courses, and I've found that the additional lab period was helpful, especially in AP Bio, because the labs take a really long time sometimes.
So there would still be lab time for AP courses. Right now, AP courses have 2 additional blocks. They would have 1 additional block under this model. So they'd still have extended time for labs.
But they would only lose 12 minutes for a week, a month. 12 minutes a month.
That's why I have these guys here.
I'm just going back to your advisory group. So can you go back and explain who has actually been asked about this or questioned about this, or, have the students has a large group of students been able to discuss this? Have they talked about it?
So
or is this news to a bunch of kids? Have you heard about this before?
Well, I had Mr. Deanna in...
So he talks about it all the time?
Yeah.
The surveys, have we surveyed students about it yet or not? No, okay. It's really been
We had our stress survey that came back with definite links to our schedule.
Yeah.
I have been talking with student council. I've talked to the president of student council. I'm interested in continuing to talk more with them. I already did go over all of our previous data, much of the same data and presentations I went through with Katie Isikoff as president of student council. We will continue to meet with them. We do have student membership on the leadership team as well.
I understand. I'm just looking at, I always am very skeptical when we have to make a quick decision on things, that I want to make sure all stakeholders have had a chance to discuss and participate, because I see this as being stressful for some students. I mean, I can see where it could be easier for some students, but I also see that there are going to be some students who are not going to want to have a different schedule every day, and that's going to bring them a little bit of anxiety to try to keep up with the pattern and to get used to the pattern. I think I love more hours of teaching every year. I love, a lot of, it seems like a wonderful program, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows it's happening and knows that this is a discussion and something that we need everybody's opinion on.
Sure.
To make sure that, it meets all these things. And if, it might bring stress away from some people and add stress to others. So I just think it's...
If I could just interject two things. One, that I would say that in relationship to the anxiety that the students talked about, one of the unintended consequences of the current schedule at the high school is that when students get tested, they get tested on the block days. And so students are walking into, over 2 days, 3 to 5 tests, because there just isn't enough time to give that test during a 42-minute period, especially in a class where half the kids get extended time. So teachers are gravitating toward that.
Why are the tests that long?
Just some of the tests at the high school level, you're going to read a poem and have to respond to it or something. So it's going to entail reading. I mean, that's as an English teacher. Within science, you're going to be doing possibly an experiment initially and then have to go take the information and do it. So
And we lost when we went to the 8-period day, we lost those minutes in the classroom. Because how long were those classes when we had the 6-period day?
7
You had
period.
a 7-period day. The classes were longer.
But by how many minutes?
They went from about 47 minutes each to about 42 minutes each.
Okay.
And so that definitely took a typical straight day and shifted the amount of time that a teacher had for a normal block.
And the other comment I was going to make concerning what you said about the rotation, every single school that we talked to that has a rotation said the same thing. First week, it's complicated. Once you're in it, you're in it, and it becomes the new norm. So we changed from the 47-minute 1 through 7 day, and we currently have 3 schedules going during the week. This is just changing it by 1 more day, if you look at it that way, 1 more schedule. And Integrate, if they're Integrate Power School, if correct, next year they're actually going to have an app, so the kid can just click on it any day and know what their schedule is right on their phone.
And we know what the days are. So if we get, let's say today was an A day, tomorrow's supposed to be a B day, and it snowed, and away we go. When we come back, we know it's going to be a C day. It's not a question of, is it a B day, et cetera. That day now is added to the end of the year. You've already got your schedule. There's that predictability.
Oh, I think it sounds like I think it sounds interesting. I'm so glad you've done all the work. It's just, this is the first time we're hearing of it.
Sure.
And you're telling us that we need to make a decision by January. So I'm just trying to...
We want to be able to have our work done to be able to present.
Make sure, that's it. I just want to make sure we're doing all the things and making sure everyone who needs to be in the discussion feels like they have had their voices heard.
We did have the opportunity to bring it to the Board of Ed Curriculum Committee, also back in October, I think it was.
Great.
To give them an update. So Susan and Lydia were both there and heard about that.
We've definitely been talking about this. I also sit on the leadership team with Todd, so we've been in these discussions. And while you guys are hearing about it for the first time, the work that's gone into it has been substantial. And the teachers that have been a part of it have given really great feedback. We do have some students that are on the leadership team as well. I wish we could get more of them, and I think that would be important if we can find a way to make sure that they can attend the next meeting.
I would love to just make sure the students are aware and participating. Because it sounds like we've got great teachers that are in a lot of good leadership.
And I like that this has been teacher-led. I think that's an important point, that it's not something we're throwing on them, it's really something they're coming to us with.
Jennifer has a question.
The thing that, because I've had the benefit of hearing this before, the thing that, I'm not sure what the right word is, disturbs is too strong, but the thing that makes me have to think a little bit more is we're talking about how this schedule isn't working in the high school, and we've just implemented it in the junior high, partly so they can transition into the high school, and we're talking about how this is increasing stress. I mean, I feel like if this is a good switch for the high school, why aren't we avoiding future potential problems at the junior high school by learning from this experiment?
Well, I think the schedule has served us well. It has served us well. It's enabled our teachers to develop more in-depth learning experiences and opportunities. And I think now we are ready to refine that and make this move. For the middle school, they've just adopted this schedule. They're still in that early implementation time. The stresses that they have and the amount of work that they have is probably not the same as our students may be encountering at the high school. And if they do decide to make a move, I think they can, but that's just going to take a little bit of time and for their faculty to work together with Scott and Anjanette and reach those same conclusions. I don't think they're doing harm by having that schedule and working with that. I think it's just a matter of them evolving with us.
That's not really what I'm hearing. That's not what I'm hearing.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing you're talking about the issues with the teaching on snow days. I mean, you're going to have the same issues in the junior high school that you have here. And I also, I mean, the first time this was explained to me, I thought, hey, this is a really clever solution. I thought the teachers on the committee did a great job putting it together and explaining it, and it really seemed to be very well thought out. You know, I don't know how you have the 8 period and then the block period, and then you still do the sharing with the Henry James teachers. It seems like those kind of things just don't seem to...
They never had the same schedules until this year.
Right, so, I mean, how is it going to mesh if you're...
It's
switch?
The way, we don't have numbers next to this, but there's basically a morning and an afternoon session, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the ones that rotate, and you have 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we have teachers, we make sure they're teaching 1, 2, 3, 4, or they're teaching 5, 6, 7, 8. And it mixes. It's not an issue at all this year. So.
And are you giving more lunch schedules?
No, 3 lunch waves still. That's always so complicated. Look at that.
So the first was a question, and then the statement. This question was on the science lab. I'm sorry to go over again. I don't understand. Right now, we have some kids who are pulled out of a regular class to go to a science class on certain days, and then other days they go back to their regular class. So will this still happen under this, or no?
It will be severely mitigated to a point where the only class where that would be an issue now would be if someone is taking an AP, because they'd have that science lab. And it would only be if that aligns with a particular class that allows that. Right now, our honors courses all have that, and they can align with certain courses where that happens. There are a few things. Number one is it might be completely eliminated, potentially, the way we're going to build the schedule. I can't guarantee that, but we have a pretty good idea of how we might be able to do that. Some good minds came together to put that together. What the main thing with that issue is in terms of the extra science period is, right now in an 8-period day, your science class, once you get past your freshman year, takes up 1/4 of your schedule. It's 2 periods in an 8-period day. And that really drives so many factors that people don't quite understand about why you might have 13 kids in this class and 28 in this class. I mean, it's so many different factors that we can really... In addition to it lessening on the individual student, there's a whole building-wide thing that this is going to impact. So,
Jen, to that point, you had a conversation with Heather Golden, who's the science department supervisor. I asked the same question: are you still going to get all the instructional time you need and have the ability to do the labs the way you do with that exclusive period gone? And her answer was yes, that having 4 days or 5 days of 58 minutes, 4 days of 58 minutes, that is certainly sufficient for most of the science classes with the exception of certain APs. So they're not losing that ability.
As well as the new implementation of the science NGSS standards, and the approach to teaching science is a little bit different than what it's been in the past. So looking at it that way, I think Heather was saying as well, with the new curriculum and the implementation of that, it does fit into the schedule.
And then my other, thank you, and then my other statement really is probably more just generally, but you were talking about the students and understanding the schedule. I have to say, if a 7th and 8th grader, given that current, in my opinion, not great Henry James schedule, where they don't eat, they're worse than the high school because it changes also by the week. When I'm going to, and so if they can figure that out, and I think that's
Anybody can figure
this out.
But it gives them stress, we hear.
Right. Well, at the Henry James, I don't understand why. I have to agree. I don't understand why Henry James wouldn't be considering this as well.
And Scott Baker and Jeanette Belmonte are on our leadership committee. We did talk about, as we're looking at this, might they be interested in looking at what schedules do the middle schools from these other high-performing schools that have this schedule, what schedule do they run, to see what similarities are there, and what might make sense for them. And I think that's a logical conclusion, and it makes sense to investigate that.
One of the factors, too, and I can't speak for the middle school, but I can talk about the high school, and I think Neil can talk to about it because he was part of the transition. One of the reasons why we also changed and went to the longer periods is to impact teachers and how they teach in the classroom, because it does take a different skill set to run an 82-minute period versus a 42-minute period. So I think why we've now run our course with this after 10 years is we've gone through that change, and our teachers have experienced that. They've developed that skill set where now we're looking towards something else. I think at the middle school we probably have to give them a little more time to develop that pedagogy about teaching in that longer period. So it absolutely has some issues, but it had some incredible benefits when it first started. So,
and I was going to say, I think when Neil led that other change about a decade ago, to go from 47 minutes to 58 minutes wouldn't have necessarily led to improved instruction or differentiated instruction necessarily. By having to go 83 minutes, teachers had to change the way that they approach the class. To go from 42 to 58 is going to be allowing me to do what I've done in the 83, but kind of condense it down. I'll still get those longer learning opportunities. The last thing I'll say is that with any schedule in the high school, which is different than the middle school, is you have a conflict between three forces. You have the music department, you have PE and health and art, and you have science labs. So every high school is forced to make a decision as to how they want to accommodate all three of those elements within their school. Some schools make PE, and other people go to half-year courses where they're wrapped around the science lab. Other schools just go pick. You got to choose what you want to do. You can't do music. You can't do science at the same time. So we're trying to find a way that can balance it, and we think that with this new schedule we were talking about, there's a way to schedule labs and never have a conflict, hopefully, with any of the music classes. But that's also then going to mean a kid can no longer wrap an 8th period around that. That students who take an AP class may be asked to take only 7 courses, and then they would have 2 study halls. So there's a give and take with everything. With every decision, there's a give and take. We can get 8 periods, but that's going to ask other departments to change the way their courses are constructed.
We can provide you with more detailed information on the minutes of instructional time. Under this schedule, everyone gains minutes of instructional time, and then even with that reduction in that additional science period, it's liberating for students in that their freedom with their schedule and their ability to change levels, and it also opens opportunities for their electives that right now are feeling the pinch and the crunch from that additional time. So we really think this is it's a win. And I said in my closing remarks on this, there is no perfect schedule or no ideal, but we do feel that this is a solid step towards a more perfect schedule and a better use of our time.
I just have one more concern. My brother is a freshman right now, and he has gone through several schedule changes. In 7th grade, he had the straight 8 period days, and then in 8th grade, he had the new bi-weekly hybrid schedule. And now this year, he's on the high school hybrid schedule. And I know that all of this is like well researched, and you guys have like figured all this out. But I'm concerned that he will not feel like he's able to truly settle into the spaces of the secondary education of Simsbury because everything around him has been shifting so much his entire, 3 years past elementary school. Just something to think about also.
Well, his 8th grade and 9th grade schedule should be very similar. Those should not be different. The last
in
2
8th grade,
years, it's his 7th grade schedule, which was different.
It's simplified this year.
Yeah, it's actually
from
easier
the
in
8th
ninth grade than
Yeah,
it is in eighth.
not fair to you.
I appreciate your thoughts, thank you.
And I'd like Jennifer to make a comment and then ask a question. And the comment, and I'm a teacher myself at the university level, and I'm looking at this through the eyes of a faculty member. And it's not high school, it's college, but I don't think I could get done in 42 minutes what I would like to get done. For me, a 42-minute class, it just isn't long enough to really develop the material. And I've never focused on this until now, but I wouldn't like to teach a 42-minute class. Equally, I have discovered after 17 years of teaching, in the university, it's an hour and 15 minutes, usually. That's our normal class time, which is, 75 minutes, and this is 83 or something like that, this current long class. I just can't keep those kids going for 75 minutes. And to get those kids going for 83 minutes, I think is asking a tremendous lot of both the teacher and the student. And I was struck by this cons or weakness period. Block periods are too long for some students. Those block periods would be too long for virtually all of my students.
And myself.
And myself. But that's the statement. I'm really supportive of that happy medium in terms of time. Now, the question is there any data, research on length of periods in terms of teaching learning capability? Is there anything we can look at that says, you know what, these classes are probably too long these days for high school students, those 82-minute classes?
Well, I think if
it's a judgment, but is there any data on it?
Well, the data that we have on school performance over these types of schedules show that schools with this drop 2 schedule do outperform schools with the others that are there, based on their numbers. We know from our sleep survey and our other work that if there's opportunities to come in later and get a little bit more sleep, that's a benefit. There's potential for that.
And then the last thing I would observe is it's kind of interesting when you look at the high school schedules, the ones that do straight 1A, drop 1, drop 2, and AB block. We got 4 in a hybrid and 10 in a drop 2 on this exhibit. To me, that's kind of instructive.
Yeah, it's telling.
It really is.
One other item, there was a day that we actually lived a schedule like this, and I think it happened because we had a snow day on a block day.
A late start.
A late start on a block day, so...
I don't know what Curtis was called, I can't remember.
So many listeners.
I don't know which one we're talking about.
And it could have been a heat day, I don't know, but it was one of those...
Something.
Right? So it was a day, though, where we had less periods, and they were all at about 58 minutes. And the feeling from our staff and students was, wow, that felt really good. You know, it was kind of that happy medium.
So about a 60-minute, anywhere around that time frame, and that's what our elementary students engage in. Is there anywhere from a 50 to 60-minute period?
And the high school has never agreed, the teachers, if you know us, can't agree on anything. And we agreed on this unanimously.
That's good to know.
By department, not by individuals, by department.
It's definitely a step in the right direction.
So destructive too. I gotta go back to this, I'm sorry. So the junior high school has got the 42 minutes?
No. They have the hybrid.
Yeah.
The middle school has the hybrid.
42 and 83, yes.
42-minute days and the 2 block days. But Scott and Anjanette are coming to the meetings. You know, at this point, they've not made a decision to make a switch. They might. We have a meeting Thursday night. We have another one in January. So, again, it's an opportunity. But Scott is brand new. This is his first year as middle school principal.
Yeah, let's throw him really.
Takes time.
You know, it does take time to try to figure that out.
Give him a break.
Talking about data, we've got 10 years of data, and we're sitting here all nodding our heads saying,
doing it.
yeah, 50 plus minutes is the right time.
And the goal was
Maybe
to...
that's a circle back conversation now, coming back out of it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right.
Yep.
I think that if you think there won't be confusion about what day it is, if we have a snow day, you're wrong.
Yeah.
It will be the first question asked on Facebook. What day is it tomorrow at the high school? I promise you that.
Yeah.
But I think that it definitely, if there's an app on your phone, that makes that easier and all of that.
But I think there'd be an app on your
assume-
phone for any schedule going
Right.
forward. I mean, I think that's, we're at that point in life that that's, I mean, that's not a reason to change a schedule. But I just want to make sure,
When's
we're
the
not,
next
quick changes
leadership
make me
meeting?
nervous.
Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
6:30.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. All questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next item is 2019-2020 budget calendar.
Yes, so we just wanted to give you the first draft of this budget calendar. There's nothing really significantly different in the number of meetings or the topics. We did highlight for the workshop meeting in February just that we're looking at a day other than a Tuesday for that week. So I know we'll be working on getting either a Wednesday or a Thursday, the 6th or the 7th, confirmed. And for the presentation of the Board of Ed budget, March 12th is a Tuesday, and because of the charter deadline of having to do that by March 15th, that will necessitate not having a board meeting, basically, in terms of the conflict of that being a typical Tuesday Board of Ed meeting night. So those are the highlights, and as you know, we'll probably make some tweaks throughout the budget schedule and keep revising that, but just at least gets the public hearing process down, and the Board of Finance has had a chance to look at these dates.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions? All right, we are open to public audience once again. Does anyone have anything they would like to share? Mr. Kelly, please stand, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
I only need one. Chris Kelly, 10 East Olmsted Road in Simsbury. In addition to being a member of the Board of Ed for 9 years, this is also my 9th year that I've been an assigned liaison from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Education.
Wow.
In those 9 years, I've never asked to speak in public audience. I have actually a philosophy that a liaison is better seen, not heard. But I am compelled tonight to speak because of Mike Goman's resignation from the board. And Mike, I just want to take a minute to convey to you that there are certain qualities that were touched upon tonight that you are an absolute role model to me on for public service. First of all, equality. Susan mentioned that when she first came on the board, you reached out to her, met with her, you did this very same thing for me. Absolutely stands out as one of the most gracious and inclusive experiences I've had in my years of experience, and was immensely helpful transitioning me to the board. The second is competence. And Mike, there was mention of the vast diversity of expertise that you have and the contribution that that makes. But what I would add to that is I never once saw you approach a discussion or a responsibility casually. Everything you do with competence. Remarkable. And finally, I just want to state objectivity. You consistently bring objectivity and good decision-making to everything that you do. I would actually have to say that 100% of the interactions I've had with you, 100%, the focus was on the quality of the decision. I didn't once see your ego play into how you interacted with me or influenced decisions. I never once saw how your personality got in the way of a good decision. I never once saw how a frustration got in the way of a good decision. So with that said, Mike, you echo what other people said. You've made a great contribution to the Board of Ed. But more important, I want to thank you for the influence you had for us as a team when I was on the board, as well as me as an individual in the town. So thank you very much.
That's very nice, Chris. Thank you very much. That's very kind words and much appreciated. It's been a great pleasure to work alongside of you on a number of tasks over the years, so that appreciate that. If you don't mind, I'm going to record that and play that back for my kids.
It is recorded. It is recorded.
That's a good thing.
I got a lot of other stories for you.
No, that's enough.
I think everyone at this table, it absolutely echoes everything that Chris just said.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Very, very lucky to have you as a mentor, a friend, and a board member.
I may never be able to use the word pedagogy again. What am I going to do?
He's going to come back to a meeting, he's going to sit in the audience and figure out a moment that it will be. And you'd be welcome to do so. Anyone else from the public? All right, with that said, future business, we will have our next board meeting on Tuesday, December 11th, but before that, we will be having our, Monday, we will be having our 3-board meeting at the Simsbury Public Library.
What time is that?
6:30?
6.
6 o'clock. And it shouldn't be too long, because we'll just get our initial conversations going. I would entertain a motion. Mike, you want to do it? Second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're done.
It's on the table then?